Yeah, again, I mean, this has been a troubling 365 days. Here in the city of Wilmington, we've seen record-breaking numbers of shooting incidents, and a record-breaking number of people who have died due to gun violence here in the city of Wilmington. And we still hear nothing from the administration, from council. It's like people's cries for help are falling on deaf ears.
And I often commend one of our governors who was very shocked to see how adamantly I was against the racism in the state after receiving a large grant to do all the dirty work, not dirty work, but the dirt that's in this in South Bridge, because that can't be bought. Right. And I think what we have to do is make sure that we start looking at leadership who can't be bought. Good evening. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
And welcome to The Source. Well, Brother Kobe, we have come to the end of a year and the beginning of a new. By the time we air this broadcast, it will be a brand new year, 2022.
Yes.
And as I said to the congregation, God has kept us and we are still here and doing well. Well, before we go on to the new year, we got to clear up some things that's happened in the old year. And one of the things I want to start with is that over the last week, we had an opportunity to look at some of the hospitals who are facing COVID patients. COVID is surging to another level, and I was told how it is much more contagious, not as lethal, but it's much more contagious, but for the unvaccinated, it is lethal.
Right. It is. And this is something the CDC has talked about, and this is why everyone pushed for everyone to get vaccinated, because until we have that herd immunity, we're going to keep seeing variants, which is very scary because after almost 2 years, we're still dealing with this. We're still wearing face masks. We still have to be cautious. Yeah. And honestly, our life is never going to go back to pre-2020, right? Yeah. So we have to start adapting and surviving that way. And one of the key things to fight this variant is to get vaccinated. And if you are vaccinated, make sure you get your booster. Yeah. But you look at last week alone, Delaware broke its record for most cases and new cases in a single day. Twice in the same week. That is very scary, very concerning. But people are also, normalized to this in a sense that when this all first started, you had the funny videos of people in trash bags all taped up going to the store. Yeah. And now, most people don't want to wear their masks anymore. Yeah. It's, so it's still the same urgency, and more people have died this year because of that resistance to being able to adapt to this change.
Yeah, and how I knew that it was going on was because many people that I knew were telling me I've tested positive. So I began to look into the data, and I personally go and get tested once a week. Not because I'm so worried I live loosely. I do that because I have a daughter who is now fully vaccinated. My mother comes and visits and has to be with us because I have to take care of my mother as well, and I want to make sure I give her nothing, as well as I have a congregation I'm trying to move forward. But, it was stunning to find out that in 1 week, 75% increase in COVID positive cases. And of that 75% increase, 78% of them were for the unvaccinated. If a person at this point decide I'm not going to be vaccinated, something is wrong with them.
Right. And, that is continuing to put great stress on our healthcare system here in Delaware. ChristianaCare is at 100% capacity. BB is also at capacity. So all up and down the state, people, the hospitals are feeling the stress, but also that puts more stress on the doctors, the nurses,
Yeah.
and the medical staff as well too.
Yeah, we got to try to urge people to please get vaccinated. Let's come out of this the best we can. This may become normalcy, but it doesn't have to be. We have to start investing in ourselves. I want to just move also to a breaking news moment here in Southbridge. We have had on Wednesday, while I was in the office, we heard a lot of cop cars and some of our staff come in and share with us that there was just a drive-by shooting right here in the Southbridge section of the city where there was two individuals, one was 20 and one was 42, who got shot. Thank the Lord they did not die.
Right.
They survived it. But what is going on with the shooting in this city?
Yeah, again, I mean, this has been a troubling 365 days here in the city of Wilmington. We've seen record-breaking numbers of shooting incidents and a record-breaking number of people who have died due to gun violence here in the city of Wilmington. And we still hear nothing from the administration, from council. It's like people's cries for help are falling on deaf ears.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, and with all transparency, I want to make sure I'm always honest with the viewers, as well as those who I come in contact with. I am scheduled to have a conversation with the mayor and his chief of staff on this coming week, and I plan to just share some things that I want them to know, because we can't get out of this by being angry with each other, holding grudges. Our young people are dying, even older and middle-aged people are dying these drive-by shootings. It wasn't just a 20-year-old, it was a 42-year-old also, and then you had children who were outside yesterday, or should I say on Wednesday. They were outside doing this shooting, and it's too much going on, but we're going to have to get rid of the politics, and we're going to have to come up with a plan. And whoever is advising the mayor, they need to be terminated, because nowhere in the world you can be this silent and somebody is advising him to just lay low. No way you can be this silent with this level of violence in our city, as well as the chief of police, too. We're not going to let Tracy off as well.
Yeah, no, and honestly, it's kind of concerning that we don't have a public safety director. Someone to oversee the police, not just the mayor to be there, but someone who specializes 24/7. That's a part of their job, to oversee what is going on. You can't have a mayor try to do it. And this is not an attack on the mayor here in Wilmington. This is any administration. It's a struggle to try to only focus on one department, right? Your city would absolutely fail that way. That's why you're supposed to put people in place to be able to oversee it, for the oversight part of it. And then you have the chief there to actually administrate things. So, that is another step that can be taken to kind of address what is going on right now, what tactics aren't working. Because obviously with record-breaking numbers like this, with as many guns that are on the street right now, it is not working, whatever strategy they think they have.
Yeah, and I guess the idea may be, I don't know, if we don't say anything but we execute our plan, it'll get better. But over the past year, it has only gotten worse. And it was interesting because our staff had shared with me what was going to happen. And I said to them, no, I don't believe that's going to happen. And this is what they shared with me. They said that today we had a shooting. Tomorrow there will be police parked around in our parking lot and other places around where the shooting is. And then within 2 days, everybody will go back to normal. There'll be no more police to be seen. I drove on the campus today, and what did I see? Police here, one at another location, and they are pursuing a spot that has now been moved on. It's just not working.
Yeah, it's not working. And when they do things like that, I've literally seen it over by where I live. All the activity, all the negative activity just moves a few blocks over. Right out of sight. And the cops, it's not like they're riding through the neighborhoods where it would be, better to see what's going on. They're stationary. They're sitting in one spot for hours on end. So therefore, yes, you may move the crime, you're not stopping it.
What we did, as I was preparing for the mayor's report card, and I'm a researcher by nature, and a lot of people think that I'm just the preacher in Southbridge, but I do have an earned PhD. And what I did was I had us to do how many times you saw a police car circling this immediate area of Southbridge. We did it for 2 days, and what we discovered was really shocking. Other than driving up Newcastle Avenue from getting gas, At one point, it was about 6 or 7 hours before we even saw a cop in this community. The second day, we didn't see one. But we do see them driving up Newcastle Avenue to be able to go get their gas. That we do see.
Okay.
Because the gas fill-up is about a half a mile up the road there. And how do you protect a community that you're not in?
Right. Exactly. And that's the main question here. We're investing millions and millions and millions of dollars into this police department. I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm saying make sure it's going into the community in an equitable way, right? So if you have so many cops that we can have stationed on the street, make sure you evenly divide them amongst the whole city. Don't pit, 50% of them downtown and at the riverfront, and then leave the rest of the city, which is the majority residential, to only have 50% to split among 7 other districts.
And I understand why you gave that analogy. I would disagree if the circumstance had changed. For example, if downtown there was a whole lot of crime, there was a lot of things going on, yes, give us a concentrated effort towards that area. But what's happening is there's not that much crime downtown.
Correct.
It's in the residential area, and we need to be able to hit those hot spots. But I don't want to get into all the details of that. I'm just mesmerized that we are constantly being plagued with gun violence in this city, and we are hearing nothing. And that's not fair. We're not saying the mayor is doing the shooting, but the point is he has an obligation. He has an obligation to be able to address the community and say, listen, this is what's going on, and this is our plan. Now, I'm not saying detail the plan. Sometimes I get upset with CNN because they give too much information, but detail the plan to the point where we know you're working.
Right.
And it's a different type of empathy. When a person know that you're working, they won't criticize you so much because they know you have an honest effort to get something, but nothing, zero, I've not heard anything in the paper. I've not heard any moments where he had a press conference, and whoever is advising him should be terminated. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave it there. And we'll continue to watch it, but we hope for the year of 2022 that this will come to an end, and that's what we're praying for. While we're on that same vein, I do want to before we go to a commercial break, I do want to spend a couple minutes talking about the state of Delaware, where we have 81 people who were killed this year, and with 216 of them being wounded. When we got that article, I was a little shocked. But what shocked me, you can talk about any area that you want to talk about, but what really shocked me the most was to find out by 4 times the violence is done on men.
Yeah.
And 98% of that group is men of color. Maybe, and I hate to always sound like I'm playing the race card, but could it be that that's why there's no real special attention towards this?
It could be. We've been ignored for decades, and it seems as though nothing really happens until it happens to the community that is viewed as the majority. And the minority communities usually get left out. We saw that when dealing with COVID originally. We see this with this gun epidemic. The main concern I really want to point out, again, is it's a very young age range.
Yeah.
It's a huge age range from 10 to 84. Yeah. But the vast majority is from the 15 to 29 age range of when these shootings happened and when these people were wounded. Also, the 216 wounded in this state, 113 were right here in the city of Wilmington.
Unbelievable.
Right here in the city.
Unbelievable. And there's no outcry other than the voices that are crying out, but officially elected outcry. And I just think it's sad. You have 116. Matter of fact, since we had 2 shootings in Southbridge on Saturday, on Wednesday, is 100 and is it 100 and
115 to 18.
But that's the report said 115, right?
113.
Okay, we added the 2.
Right.
Okay, so that made it 150. Okay, I understand. But I'm just sitting back trying to figure out how can we continue to allow this to occur. Those children, for example, I had to send a text message out to all of my parents, sharing with them they could not come on the campus because the police had the place, locked down. Yep. Parents are trying to work, they're trying to live, they're trying to survive, and there is silence in the city. But let's move it a little bit further. Just since we're talking about state numbers, where is the governor with all of this?
Right. This is a category per capita. This is horrible compared to other states. And, this is not a category we want to be leading in.
Absolutely.
Some of Delaware's highest rankings are for the worst things: gun violence, incarceration, recidivism rate. We as a state, as leaders, community leaders, faith leaders, elected leaders, all need to come together and sit down and say, look, how can we change this around? We want to be last in the nation in this statistic, but we want to be first in education. We want to be first in housing. We want to be first in healthcare. How do we change that system around? And until people are willing to put their politics aside, put their egos aside, we're not going to get there as a state. And it's because we're so small and we have that proximity to power. That's why things don't change as fast as they need to.
Okay. Well, maybe we really need to make sure we put in that strong effort in encouraging people to vote, because this has to, with COVID and the killings, the shootings, and the killings that are happening in our state, we really need to take another look at how we elect and who we are electing. Because some people have certainly bought off some of the black and brown leadership, or even those in the community who are activists. Some of them are activists as long as they didn't have a grant. But when they get a grant, then they become scared. And I often commend one of our governors who was very shocked to see how adamantly I was against the racism in the state after receiving a large grant to do all the dirty work, not dirty work, but the dirt that's in South Bridge, because that can't be bought. Right. And I think what we have to do is make sure that we start looking at leadership who can't be bought. Who doesn't have such a stain on their record that they can't speak out. Right. And I think that's going to be important. So what I wanted to do is just talk about this, and it's just heartbreaking. I'm gonna keep saying it. It's heartbreaking. It's unbelievable for those of you who are watching us, those of you who are part of this source community. I think you have to start saying, why are my children hiding in the house? Why is it that I'm afraid to go out to the supermarket? You go to your car, you get shot up. It's too much going on, and we have to bring an end to it. But we did elect people who are paid to represent us and to make change. And listen, if the change fell, at least there was a try. I don't even see the try. Right.
And again, at the end of the day, it's going to take those unbarred people. But as we go into the next year, as we start this next year, I really hope that we see two declines. Decline in the gun violence in this state and decline in the COVID cases in this state. So we have some work to do. We're going to continue to speak out. That's right. And we're going to continue to be willing to help whatever we can.
We have some video on the COVID-19 for the state of Delaware that we want to, well, shall I say, there's an article on the overwhelming stress that the hospitals have. So we encourage people to go online to see that, and also about the killings. If you want to know more about that, that's on Delaware Online too, as well as the gun violence in the state of Delaware. We'll be right back.
As the Omicron variant tears across the country, the CDC is changing its recommendations for people who test positive for COVID. The isolation period now shortened from 10 days to just 5 days for those with no symptoms.
For the days 6 through 10 that you would have been isolated, you still have to be wearing a mask, and you have to be asymptomatic.
Recommended quarantine time for those exposed to COVID was also cut to 5 days for the unvaccinated or for people who had their vaccinations a few months ago and no booster. Experts do not expect the new guidance to contribute to more viral spread.
If you are asymptomatic and you are infected, we want to get people back to the jobs, particularly those with essential jobs, to keep our society running.
And that includes airlines. Holiday travel plans are being upended as many vaccinated staff and crew have called out sick after testing positive for COVID.
Many of the Omicron cases, interestingly, are either without symptoms or minimally symptomatic. particularly the breakthrough infections that you get when people have been vaccinated.
On Monday, more than 1,400 flights were canceled, more than 7,400 delayed, according to FlightAware. The seasonal rush also creating a heavy demand on COVID testing.
All I can do is wait. I've been several places and it's the same.
Testing locations are swamped with lines wrapped around sites for blocks. At-home test kits are at an even higher premium. President Joe Biden conceding the steps he took earlier this year to scale up testing capacity have been insufficient in the wake of the Omicron surge.
We went from no over-the-counter tests in January to 46 million in October, 100 million in November, and almost 200 million in December. But it's not enough. It's clearly not enough.
The administration is preparing another 500 million free at-home rapid tests for Americans to order online, but the system will not be in place until next month. On a conference call with governors, the president offered assistance, but said ultimately it would be states' efforts that curb the pandemic.
There is no federal solution. My message to the governor is simple. If you need something, say something.
And we're back. Well, we had an opportunity to talk about the local news, and now I want to turn our attention towards the national news. But one of the things that we talked about in the local was about this whole Omicron variant and how contagious it is. Well, on the national level, and there's a video that I want to share, but on the national level, the professionals or the experts are saying that this is a surge unlike anything they've ever seen because how contagious it is. It may not be as lethal, but it is certainly as contagious as they've ever seen. And I'm just wondering why people still don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the biggest stories this week was about the Carnival cruise ships. Yeah. 3 of their cruise ships had to stay out at sea or return back to the U.S. because they had outbreaks on the cruise ship, where you have over 2,000 people packed onto a boat for 7 days, 10 days, 12 days. You know, it's bound to spread. No one's wearing masks on there. Everyone's out. They have clubs there. They have restaurants. They have shopping malls. Everyone's there, no mask, because they think they're all on a boat together. And that's not how it works.
Well, one of the things I think they had done, and even though you're right, and I'm going to make sure that I don't say but, you are right. They should have on masks, but what they are thinking, I believe, because I'm a cruiser, is that you have to be vaccinated, 1, fully vaccinated, and 2, that there's a test being given right before you get on. And most, if not everybody who got on that ship probably was negative. Right. But what happens is sometimes you're negative today, but positive tomorrow.
Right. Not even tomorrow, just later in the day. Yes. Right? It lays dormant in your system. Yeah. And there's a window of incubation. Right. That, you know, they try to say, wait 48 hours after you've been in contact, a known contact with someone who has tested positive. But you could be at the store, you could be, you know, shopping to get your clothes for the trip. Right. If people still go to the stores to shop. I know a lot of people do online stuff now, but those small interactions, it could happen just like that.
Or getting in the taxi cab to come to the ship.
Right. Yeah. So you could be carrying it and not even know. No, right. And once you're on that ship for those many days, you can become sick, and then that could lead to other people getting sick as well.
And too. And even if you don't become sick, you can be A-type and be shedding. One of the things I was very glad to hear is that the shedding of a person who is vaccinated, fully vaccinated, is different than the shedding of one who is unvaccinated, but it still sheds. Right. So we want to make sure we're protective. And I'm just a little shocked that that people are just not getting it. They're saying, no, I'm not going to do it. This is my right. I had parents who left our center. We had we had several families who just left and said, no, I'm not going to get vaccinated, so our child won't be a part of your center anymore, which is fine with me because we've not had any real outbreaks at all. Our children have been safe because our parents are vaccinated, but I just don't understand why people will not get vaccinated.
Yeah. No, it's a real shame here in America. Again, a lot of people are saying, it's my First Amendment right, my body, my choice. But these are usually the same people who don't believe in that message when it comes to other things.
Like abortion and things like that nature. I was waiting for you to finish off because that's exactly how it is.
But also, it's, when people are doing these sit-ins in New York City, and they have pictures of MLK saying that this is the greatest action, that Dr. King would have been out there with them, I sit back and I listen to MLK III when he says, these people know nothing about my father.
Absolutely.
They know nothing about what the fight was truly about. Again, and this goes all the way back to, we need to teach better history.
Yeah.
Dr. King didn't just march twice and then have a meeting with LBJ and we had voting rights, we had education. No, it took time. It was over a course of things. And I think people are seeing that and wanting to reenact that. And they're doing that now for this fight when it comes to COVID. There is a strong movement that are anti-mask, anti-vax. And they truly believe that they are doing the work of God. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sad. But they're not doing the work of God.
Right.
If I have an extra minute on the show today, I just want to share the story I shared with our congregation when I was trying to convince those few people who were not led of God yet to get vaccinated. There's a story of a woman, I may have even said it on the show, I can't remember, but there's a story of a woman who had great faith, so she believed, and she believed that everything she did, it was only under the direction of the Lord Jesus Christ. So she had heard from the newscaster that there's going to be a great flood in the city. And this flood would flood everybody out, so therefore they told everybody to get out. Get out of the city or you will drown in the water. She said, oh no, my faith is too strong in God. God will save me. The water started coming and she's up in her bedroom now because the water has reached that high level, and they sent a tugboat by and said, hey, you come on, woman, save yourself. She said, oh no, my God will save me. I'm a woman of faith. Then they got all the way up on top of the roof, and a man with a helicopter came and said, hey, save yourself. She said, oh, no, my God will save me. Well, the woman drowned. The woman gets to heaven, and she puts her hand on her hip and says to the Lord, why did you allow me to drown? You know I'm an ambassador of yours. And the Lord looked at her and said, I sent you the news person, I sent you the helicopter, and I sent you the boat. You should have drowned. All too often, we're waiting for God to speak when he's sending us all of the right messages for us to do what we need to do. And there are many people who are in the hospital today, or some who have died, who said, I wish that I had taken the vaccination, but they did not. It's not good, not good. Well, I'll move on from that and go to the Build Back Better. The last thing I want to do, because I know a lot of things are going on, and I want to say to all of you, especially to our good friend and colleague, brother, should I say, Senator Chris Coons, we are certainly praying for your speedy recovery. And we believe in the power of prayer, and you do too. You're a man of God as well. And we are praying that you will come through this stronger than ever before, because he too have been tested positive for coronavirus as well.
Yeah, definitely wishing you well. This is, again, there was a spike in the Senate, right? I think 7 senators now have COVID or had it within the last week and a half. So wishing them all best wishes, but hopefully they get back and better soon, so that they can vote on Build Back Better, and they can vote on voting rights. And just right now, we're taking steps to prepare for a midterm as a Democratic Party, as a Republican Party, as a voting electorate, right? We know the midterms are usually not good for the president's party. And these are 2 major pieces of legislation for the president, especially his economic recovery plan of Build Back Better. That was his campaign pledge. He's made it his flagship after the infrastructure. If he's not able to get that passed and be able to deliver in a timely manner that the individual voter sees an impact, then it's going to go very bad for Democrats and for the party of the president come 2022.
Yeah, well, I just hope that both items, because the Build Back Better has some great stuff in there to help those communities that I represent. And I'm hoping that they would get that through. I somewhat am upset with the Democratic Party because we allow the Republicans to continue to outplay us. And they had one agenda a couple years years ago, and that was Mitch McConnell's whole agenda was to get those judges to make sure
Yes.
that the Supreme Court looked like conservatism, and he stayed focused. And even though everybody said it's not fair, he didn't do the judge under Obama and the
He
one
didn't
waiting
care.
for Biden, he did not care. He allowed them to talk. For us to be so righteous indignated, I think it's really bad. It's really bad. So I hope they get it back, but if they do not, then I'm not going to be upset that we lose the House, because we had an opportunity to make that happen.
Right. And, you know, it was said the other day by Sheila Lee Jackson, if you can put a judge on a federal lifetime appointment spot, right, with only 51 votes, then you should be able to pass democracy-based issues
Yes.
with 51 votes.
Yes.
And here's the thing with the voting rights, you know. There's going to be a march on MLK Day, because this isn't a day to celebrate. It's a day to honor the work that Dr. King did, but we are still fighting for what he fought for.
Absolutely.
Down in D.C., led by his son and Reverend Al Sharpton and Reverend Barber. But when it comes to the voting rights, the Senate is still at a standstill because of this filibuster. And people have been talking about it all year long. I've been arrested, protesting peacefully, calling for the end of the filibuster when it comes to voting rights. We've seen our own Senator Carper, change his views on it. Change it from, no, I will never vote to change the filibuster, to, no, this is an urgent matter that we have to deal with, and if the filibuster is in the way, then it has to go. We hope that Senator Coons joins him in that same thinking.
You know, I hold your thought there. I hope and pray that he does, because Chris Coons is a really good guy. He understands humanity.
Yes.
And if the Bible says that faith without works is dead. So I would be shocked, and I would have to take you to dinner if he did not vote. If they put a vote up for the filibuster to be removed for the civil rights issue, then I would be floored, and would probably lose a friendship.
Right. And here's the thing, right? You know, earlier this week, Senator Harry Reid, the former majority leader of the Senate, Democratic leader, he passed away, 82 years old.
Yeah.
He's the one who changed the filibuster for judges when it comes to the Supreme Court. His last op-ed before he died was strongly encouraging change to the filibuster for democracy-based issues, for voting rights. As these senators and members of Congress are going to be reflecting and giving speeches about their friendship with him, hopefully like they do with Representative John Lewis, that in their memory, they honor their wishes. Because these were two giants of two of these chambers.
Absolutely.
Right? So hopefully they take what he did. He had the courage to do it.
Right.
And it changed the course of America. Hopefully they have the same. It is way past time to make sure we're protecting everyone's voting rights. And I know I talk about black voting rights a lot because I'm black. And I want to make sure my cousins down in Georgia and Texas are taken care of.
Right.
But this will affect everyone, regardless of your race, your gender, your religion. This is about making sure everyone has a fair playing field in democracy. Look, if we lose elections, that's fine.
Absolutely.
That it's not about winning or losing. It's about making sure people can get out and have their voices heard.
And that's right. That is indeed the truth. So with the Build Back Better, we already talked about the voters' rights, and we're just hoping, and we're going to stand by and watch, see what happens with that. That will not be silenced.
Right.
But then the Build Back Better, we don't know where that's going to go.
Build Back Better, they're still trying to get a framework that Manchin will be on board with.
Yeah.
And it's sad because, you know, starting in January, people won't get those the $300 or $250 checks that they were getting.
Yeah, and that's going to hurt us more because it's going to take away the interest of voting.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly, especially for the low-income family.
Right.
So that's huge. So.
Well, we're gonna be watching, and we're going to be seeing. We'll be right back. And we're back. Well, today this segment of our show normally is about the whole silent storm, and we are doing a lot of investigative work while we are preparing for to present to you various aspects. We were in the midst of doing our mayor's report card, and we had stopped it because we wanted to go through some other things that we wanted to do, as well as to get some more information in so we won't be unfair. Starting next week, we will continue that process. One of the things that I did is I wanted to do something with this show just to do an experiment. And we want to see how it works. This new segment for this week and then a couple of more weeks is going to be called Crime Stoppers. It is at this point where we're just a little sick and tired of asking, what can the police, what can the city do for us? Here in Southbridge, some demonically demented individual decided that they would come and take one of our street pothole things and throw it through the window of our wholeness center, go in, try to break into some doors and try to find money or whatever they were looking for. We have excellent footage on this person. We've called the police department. They did come out. They went to one building, didn't go to the other. But we called the police department after they had come out, and they gave us a number to call once we were able to get the footage. We got the footage for a week, and we have not heard back from anyone at the Wilmington Police Department, which really concerns me. People have said to me, you know, Pastor Curry, you need to put a fence up at Zion Fair because you're going to keep having these issues. And I told them, and I'm going to stick by this, we will not. In order for me to fight for a community, I have to be a part of that community. The same issues they are suffering with are the same issues I must suffer with if I'm going to be authentic in how I represent them. So we decided we're not going to do that, but we decided with this whole crime fighters or stoppers is this. We're going to pay $1,000 in cash. Yes, you heard it right. $1,000 in cash if you can identify this person. You see on your screen right now, this individual. There are people who will criticize me as a pastor and say, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to have grace. We're supposed to have mercy. But when Jesus went into the temple and saw that they were whoring the temple, he began to throw tables upside down and he got angry. I am now angry. This Community Development Corporation, Zion Fair Community Development Corporation, we do not charge a dime to this community for any of the services that we render. There is a state-of-the-art gym facility, full court gym. We have a full weight room. We have locker rooms. We have different programs that come in and out of that building. We have male steppers. We have female cheerleaders, of which we bought all of their uniforms and we gave them the state-of-the-art equipment. We do not charge this community for any of the basketball games that we put together so they can have entertainment that is healthy. We try our best to be who we want our community to be, and that is friendly, embracive, and supportive. But for this demonically individual that you see on your screen to feel that in the middle of the night I can just go and bust through and do what I want to do, yes, I'm angry. And no, I will not tolerate it. The City of Wilmington Police Department decided we'll get to you when we can. Other stuff is going on. I don't know. But I decided, if you can tell me this person's name and this person, and that leads to an arrest, I will give you, not I personally, but the church will give you $1,000 cash, no strings attached. Call the church, 302-652-9114. Once you call the church and speak with our front desk person, you will give them, if you don't want to give your real name, but you want to give them a fictitious name. I'm sorry, my tongue got twisted there. And you want to, they will give you a code number. And if your person is the person, We will recontact you with the number you give us and tell you to come pick up your $1,000 cash. We are not playing games with the devil or with individuals who want to disrupt a good thing. We thought we could depend on the police department, but we're going to have to take matters into our own hands. Again, if you know this individual, and this is a clear picture, you will not be identified. You will not be asked to go to court. You identifying the picture will replace you. And we will make sure that your identity remains anonymous. We appreciate the Southbridge community. Out of nowhere last week, someone just starts spraying and shooting. This is not what this community is used to. This is a rich, strong, culturally sound community. And I am angry, not because somebody busted in and now we don't have any money. We have insurance. It's taken care of. If you go over there, you will never know anything happened. But enough is enough. And this is not the first time somebody tried to do something inappropriate, but I am not tolerating it. We will use this mechanism to get the people, and we will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. This is probably a lesson that maybe the mayor, the chief of police may want to take and say, you know what, if we want to stop some of this, we're going to have to get tough. Please call us, 302-652-9114. We will keep you anonymous. We will make sure that you are not identified, but we will prosecute, and we will make sure that you get your just $1,000 cash. No checks, no money orders. It will be cash. Thank you so very much. God bless.
I'm getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Yes, there could be some short-term side effects from the vaccine, but they go away in a day or two. Those are signs that my body's building protection. It's worth it to avoid serious problems from COVID-19.
And we're back. My favorite part of the show, Kobe's Corner.
Yes.
What's going on for the Kobe's Corner?
Yeah, so, it's the last Kobe Corner of the year, so I wanted to do a review of where we're at with things, both on the state and federal level. So I'm going to dive right into it. On the state level, we had some major wins. In my opinion, one of the biggest is SB 15, which is the $15 minimum wage, that we will see an increase here in Delaware starting on January the 3rd, so tomorrow, when, your hourly wage for the lowest wage workers here.
Well, now I thought that was, that's not in 25, or that's...
So it's going to go up incremental.
Okay.
And it will reach 15 by 2025.
Okay.
So it'll be 1025 as of tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
So that's a first step. It's going to keep building on each year.
Okay.
And then it will continue to rise with inflation.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah. So that was a huge piece of legislation that they have been working on for a few years. And it really took a new generation of leaders getting elected down there to really get it over the hump and make sure it got passed. And that was, if anything, I think that was the flagship piece of legislation that all the two chambers and the governors can really be happy about, because that's going to have a huge impact on people's lives.
Now, was there a whole lot of resistance on that, though?
It was. And a part of that was another bill that was involved in that, that it created, in 2017, the House at the end of session created a youth in training wage in order to pass the budget. That means that people who are in the training process gets paid below the minimum wage, and people below 18 also got paid below the minimum wage. But
even though I did the same work?
Even though they're doing the same work. With the thinking, the person who sponsored the bill was a Republican, Mike Ramone, and his thing was kind of personal because he hires a lot of young people. He owns swimming pools, right? Who works the swimming pools? A lot of young kids, right? So he got to pay them under the wage. I think it was a conflict of interest, but what it did, was create a subsection of the wage, which really impacted low-income families. Because if I'm working and I'm in a low income, I'm not working just for fun, just for some extra change. I'm working to help my family.
Okay.
So they should have been paid at the same rate. They're doing the same work, same hours, right? So HB 88 was also paired with SB 15, and those two kind of together brought up everyone's wages to be on par with each other and to raise the overall state rate level as well.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that the wages are going up. You know, as an entrepreneur, quite natural, you would say, my gracious, that's going to hurt my pockets. But
Right.
not so much my pockets being a nonprofit. But it's not.
Right.
Because in actuality, the more people make, the more they spend, and the more your business flourish as well. So it's like a hand washing on both sides.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the next piece is, law enforcement accountability, right?
Okay.
We saw SB 147, which changes, Jay has talked about it, it changes the use of force policy to be from subjective to objective, and allows for, there has to be a real reason to use a certain amount of force. It cannot just be, I feared for my life, but you were also reckless. You have to have just cause.
Okay.
So that's a huge piece. Unfortunately, it cannot be applied to the Lamont Moses case, but going forward, it will be applied in a different manner. So hopefully we'll see more accountability come from that. Also passed was SB 148, which expands the power of the DOJ's civil rights and public trust to review police use of force incidents that result in serious physical injury, not just death. Now, the governor has not signed that yet. But it has passed both chambers. I definitely want to give a shout out to the Senate and to the House for getting that done. That will be huge when dealing with cases like this.
Now, is the governor indicating that he's going to sign that?
He has not indicated if he's going to sign it as of now.
What do you think?
I think he is still trying to get circle up with his legal counsel to see if it's going to be constitutionally challenged. But from the Senate and the House side of it, with their attorneys, they believe it's a sound bill and that it won't fail. If it is constitutionally challenged, it won't fail.
Okay.
Also, both of those bills were championed by Sherry Dorsey Walker, Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker in the House, and Senator Marie Pickney in the Senate. So, we're grateful to have those two there.
Yeah, I want to give a special shout out to Sherry Dorsey Miller because she's really been kicking it out. She's been a force down there. And
a lot of these bills I'm about to list, she was the House sponsor or she was the prime sponsor overall on all of them. Next up is SB 31. And SB 32. They were both sponsored by Senator Darius Brown. SB 31 was the second leg of a constitutional amendment that adds race, color, and national origin to the Equal Rights Amendment. To protect us in the Constitution, the Delaware Constitution. And SB 32 was the Crown Act, which outlaws discrimination based on hair.
Based on hair?
Yeah. So you can wear your natural hair. We saw that in workplace discrimination claims and stuff like that. So it is officially in our code now that you are protected to be your natural self with your natural hair. And Sherry Dorsey Walker was the House sponsor on both of those. And also dealing with Black power and Black history, HB 198, the Black history in our schools, which we've talked about, right? The other side have said a CRT, which is not. It's teaching more in depth what was the history of African Americans in this country. And that was sponsored by Sherry Dorsey Walker, yet again. And that passed both, and the governor signed it. And it's going to go a long way. It's going to be implemented this year. Red Clay and Brandywine School District just got their books in, their new history books. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. But also on a school-based level, they still have to do some work there, too. I know in Brandywine, especially in schools like Concord, they have no African Americans in their history departments. So reading from a book is one thing, but having that lived experience as you're teaching it will just bring a whole different perspective.
Well, and
to
also
it.
being trained on it. And I think all too often when we were talking about bringing more Black history into, and I'm a history major as well, is that when you have people trying to teach a concept that they have not been taught. A lot of universities don't even have an African American experience in their curriculum. It becomes almost like what did the textbook say? But what makes education strong is that there's a debate of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting how we're going to institute it here in Delaware.
Again, Sherry Dorsey Walker again. HB 119, making Juneteenth a statewide holiday. That passed right before the end of session, just in time for Juneteenth. We had Opal Lee come here from Texas, who is the grandmother of Juneteenth, and speak on it. It was very nice to have her here. Again, that was championed by Sherry in the House and Senator Brown in the Senate. In regards to election reform, we got SB 5 passed, which is automatic voter registration at the DMV. So everyone will be automatically registered to vote. All you have to do is give them what party you want to be a part of, if you want to be a part of a party, or you can choose non-affiliated. But everyone is an opt-out. You have to opt out of not wanting to vote.
Excellent.
Instead of having to opt in. That is huge.
Yeah.
So you have,
I was just agreeing.
Yeah, so and then next, a bill that passed the House, still in the Senate, but I want to bring some light to it, is HB 30. So this really wouldn't have any effect until 2024, but what it would do would make our state primary the same day as our presidential primary. And what we've seen is when we're in presidential years, it's about 70,000 people difference voting in the presidential than voting in our state primary a few months later. So if they're the same day, hopefully that would drive up participation and bring out more voices, right? And it also makes things easier. Having, any convenience, voting has been taking a lot longer recently here in Delaware. So, you want to make sure you're not going to the polls constantly. You get it done one time and you're good.
Yeah.
Next, another bill sponsored by Sherry Dorsey Walker. Like I said, I'm going to say her name a lot today. She was definitely the MVP. She got a lot of bills passed this session. House Bill 25, which is same-day voter registration. So say you are not registered to vote and you decide you want to go vote. You can get registered right there and be able to vote same day. It eliminates the waiting period that was almost 60 days from when you had to register to when you could actually vote. So that is huge. They have it in a lot of other states. And again, it continues to create voting access, especially as we're seeing people attack our voting rights and our democracy. Now, a bill that passed the Senate but failed in the House was the second leg, is HB 75, sponsored by David Bentz. It was a constitutional amendment to allow for no excuse absentee voting. So right now in Delaware, if you're doing absentee voting, you have to give an excuse. I have work that I can't get off. I have a medical condition that I can't get to the polls. They relaxed that during COVID, but we are no longer in that emergency in the eyes of the state anymore. So therefore, they're trying to change that to create that more openness for people to be able to vote. Unfortunately, the 3 Republicans who had supported it the first year in 2020, after the Trump laws, they then changed their messaging saying that Democrats are stealing the election and Democrats stole the election here in Delaware, which is very far-fetched. Regardless of how the national election went, Joe Biden was going to win Delaware. I can tell you that. And he was going to win it overwhelmingly. So that's kind of where we're at with the voting rights things and with the state review. It was a very successful year. On a federal level, you saw President Biden was able to get his key infrastructure bill passed. It took longer than expected. It's a little skinnier of a budget than expected, but he was able to get it through, and we should start seeing the impacts of that starting maybe by as early as March 2022. He was able to get the American Rescue plan passed, which is huge. It was able to get more money into people's pocket. It was able to get money to local governments and to state and county governments as well too. And it gave them a little more free range on what they can use the money for, whether it's a reimbursement program for the money they lost due to being in a pandemic, or if it's new ideas and new programs. Like we've talked about, we can use that money now to address gun violence. We can use that money for housing. So that money was definitely needed. It was a huge push, and that was able to pass. Also, Joe Biden has done a great job at diversifying the bench, the federal bench. He has put more black women, more women of color, and more minorities, period, on the bench in this first year than any other president. So that's going to change. We may not see that effect right now, but that will be a lasting change for the next 2 to 3 decades. He is pitting a lot of younger people on the bench as well too, kind of taking a play out of the Republican playbook of pitting young justices on the court. But to bring it back around, 2021 was a hard year for a lot of people. We saw struggles when it comes to paying our bills, to dealing with this pandemic, housing issues, and then on top of everything, gun violence. And it seems as though a lot of black issues have been in the headlines, but the solutions haven't. And I think, as we go into 2022, we as a people have to start coming together and asking for more for us as a collective.
Right.
As we see these headlines kind of dominate 2021, we can say we can learn from that, but we can say we can reclaim our own narrative. We're not saying, we want to be treated like royalty. We want to be treated as a superior class. We're saying we want to be treated equally.
Right.
And it has been decades long of policies that have been implemented that has created an unequal standing. And we have to come together, we have to stand together to say that now is the time that we get equitable investment in our communities, equitable change that benefits us in a positive way. Not just a few of us.
Right.
But that is all I have for my review. To finish off the year, I think we've done a good job overall bringing to light a lot of the issues. We still have a lot of work to do. Again, the voting rights and Build Back Better still.
And we're back. Well, Kobe, it has been a wonderful show today. We had an opportunity to express a lot of local, some follow-up stuff, as well as my favorite part is the Kobe Corner. We're getting ready to close out and start up a brand new year. I hope and trust that those who have been viewing us have enjoyed the show. I thank you for the comments that you all have been sharing with us to keep us moving and moving forward. We plan to stay around, and we're going to make an impact. It's going to be a slow change, but we're going to make an impact in this community because we are committed to it. And we will not be bossed, and we will not be bought. We're going to do what's right, that you may be informed with news that is very reliable and truthful. Kobe, is there anything else on your table that you want to talk about today?
No, I just want to say Happy New Year's to everyone. As we continue to go into year 2 of this show, feel free to invite a friend to join us, to hear our message, and to comment. Let us know what y'all are thinking. Let us know what y'all want to hear about. But again, I just want to say thank you. It's been a fun year with everyone, and I look forward to year 2.
Thank you. And let me add on to that and say I look forward and Happy New Year to all of you who are viewing us. One last glimpse of this demonically demented individual on your screen. If you know this person, call the church. You will not be identified. We will give you the special code. If this person leads to an arrest, we will certainly give you $1,000 in cash, and we will come back and announce that we have gotten our guy, and we will never disclose who you are. We have that covenant with you. Thanks so very much for the time that we shared together today. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
See ya.
Take care, y'all.